Okay, first thing after that cliffhanger is a triple dot. Appropriate, I suppose. I guess technically it's the last chapter, so I should be checking this thing. Yay, we're in full bloom. The only downside is he might have killed Heisuke. In which case, I'm going to be very unhappy. Sanan, I want to believe that you are trying to milk information from dear old dad and brother and having to play this part. I'm hoping that he knew exactly where to stab Heisuke so that he wouldn't quite kill him, but make it look convincing enough to dad and brother that he was trying to. Otherwise, we're gonna have a talk, because Heisuke's one of my faves, and you don't kill Heisuke. It's just not done. I can't believe it ended there, though. Like, it just stopped. Like, Sen and Kimigiku were still fighting those brother and dad, and it was just like, and Heisuke got stabbed. Chapter 4. Okay, more triple dots. I awoke, lying in a sparsely furnished room with a ringing headache, touching my hand to my cheek to trace the dried, scabbed cut. Details of what happened towards the end of being in Kane Temple were fuzzy, but I had later gathered that I had been taken to Shirakawa Castle in Oshu, a city of culture that, allegedly, is second only to Kyoto in terms of arts, culture, and entertainment. It was famously divided at the end of the Boshin War. Father occupied this castle alongside his forces, and he saw to it that I was kept under strict house arrest. Great, under house arrest again. Up until this point, they hadn't made my imprisonment difficult, much to my surprise. On the contrary, they treated me graciously and with dignity, which was eerie to think about. Of course, the courtesy hadn't extended beyond being able to exit the confines of the locked bedroom. Instead, I was made to wait, wallowing in my pathetic uselessness as time slipped from my hands like sand. 1 day. 2 days. 3 days. Hours felt stretched like mochi over the tongue, and soon it became difficult to keep hold of any reasonable track of time. My only frame of reference to approximate the hours of the day was when meals were unceremoniously carried to my room. Oh, so now you bring me food. Okay.
Excuse me, Yukimura. I've come to deliver your supper. Another meal untouched, eh? Eventually, you'll have to develop an appetite or you'll wither away.
I'm not hungry.
Well, that's unfortunate to hear. But doesn't this reversal of fortune intrigue you? Now it is me who is serving you food. Humorous, don't you agree?
I would find some humor in it under normal circumstances, yes.
Perhaps you don't. As you recall, when the two of us were still with the Shinsengumi, I relied on you.
What happened to Heisuke, Sen, and Kimigiku? I interrupted his anecdote in frustration. Sanan thinned his eyes, letting out a heavy sigh as he recited the same answer as he had given before.
This might be difficult for you to understand, but regardless of how many times you ask, my answer, the truth, has yet to change. It was pathetic. Princess Sen and Kimigiku sniveled, running off with their tails tucked between their legs. As for Toto, I personally killed him and dumped his body in Shinobazu Pond at Kane Temple.
Ah. You dumped his body. Okay. I have some hope. I have some hope in Heisuke. Heisuke's gonna come back. We're gonna get that bro team up. It's gonna happen. Please. Let me believe. You lie.
You dare call me a liar? Are you being willfully ignorant? Hadn't you seen me thrust my sword into his body before he collapsed like some sickly child?
What? Why? Who are you? This isn't the Sanan I know! You killed him! You were friends!
Correction. Former friends. I have resigned from my post as colonel of the Shinsengumi. The Makoto flag is dead to me.
My teeth were harshly gritted, creaking in contempt. He was rubbing it in my face, taking pleasure from my helplessness, shattering what remained of my trust. I mean, for the... I'm still on his side. For the ruse to work, everyone has to believe that it's true, including her. So he has to literally rub it in your face and make you hate him for Dad and brother to buy it. There's no other way. Luckily for myself, neither father nor Sanan had bothered to take my Kodachi from me. As I reached for it slowly with my hand, she was just like, that's it, I've had enough. The door startled me as it slid open, and I snapped my hand back to the side of my hip.
Sanan, how is Chizuru doing?
Oh, how nice of you to join. Things are going swimmingly in here.
Father. Kaoru.
Aw, look at those precious cheeks. Still got a little bite in you, do you? Might as well give up while you still can. Otherwise, we might have to start experimenting on ways to break you.
Enough, Kaoru. Chizuru is still very valuable to us.
Only joking, of course. I'd never do anything to damage that pretty face.
A festering resentment burned in Kaoru's glare, causing the hairs behind my neck to stand upright. I couldn't let them see any signs of weakness in me, though, and I returned the glare twice-fold. You go, girl. Tell me, what do you plan on doing with me? What are you plotting, Father?
Isn't it obvious? All that I want is for you to become a part of my legacy, to see that my dream for this country manifests into something real.
Your legacy?
I've dedicated decades of my life to honing the water of life into a flawless serum. Sensitivity to sunlight and bloodlust were obstacles, but also opportunities for me to build a perfect fury. My true purpose in this world, however, has nothing to do with the water of life's potency. It's bigger than that. I want every man, woman, and child in this country to taste this serum, to witness the miracle of its powers.
A crooked, joyous grin warped over Father's face. Hearing what his true intentions were was anything but joyous, though, and I was beginning to feel queasy imagining the world he had envisioned. Sanan and Kaoru merely nodded in silence. Wait, so all this time you've been masquerading this as a weapon, but you want civilians to take it?
Yes. Quite wonderful, isn't it? The distinction between humans and demons will blur, and we can all live in harmony as one people. Casualties and ailments will disappear altogether, a distant memory. Think of the lives we could save. The human body's feeble restraints will fade, and as a collective we can fight the tide of foreign invasion. Sadly, there is one thing keeping us from seeing this vision brought to life. Ingredients for the serum's mass production are limited and hard to come by. After a long period of deliberation, I found the solution hiding right underneath our noses. As it turns out, demon blood is the key to cultivating a vast supply of serum, enough for our entire nation.
Don't tell me!
You, my dear, are of pure-blooded descent. Thus I can think of no one better to offer as a sacrifice to help me change the course of history.
Yeah, sure, use her when you have my twin brother right beside you. I mean, gee, he couldn't do, could he, Dad? Thanks. Thanks a lot. There was once a time when I couldn't help but notice the innate kindness resting in Father's eyes. That time had ended, replaced by a salaciousness that haunted me to my core. It enveloped me, causing me to shiver with fear, and I took a tepid step backwards from him.
You should feel quite honored, you know. The Yukimura clan, once on the brink of extinction, holds the blood that will shape the fate of our world. Join me, my child. Join me in making a difference, to end the plight and suffering of your kin.
No! I would never, ever help you do such a horrifying thing! I threw a fit, shaking my head in a white-hot rage. Father, who cut his teeth saving the lives of his patients, was proposing to infect the country for his own delusional sense of justice.
Sacrificing your own daughter's blood to produce furies, eh? Some father you are.
Watch it there, man. Might want to choose your words carefully. Besides, she's not really his daughter.
What? I wasn't his real daughter?
You're really dense, you know that? Think about it. If we're siblings, then why the hell do you hear me referring to him by name? The man you know as Father, Kodo Yukimura, adopted you for one sole purpose. All those memories you have? Forget about them. This guy is your abductor, not your father. I didn't have that luxury. After he deemed me useless, he left me with the Nagamo clan. Talk to me when you know the real meaning of pain.
A remote second-tier demon clan based in the Tosa domain. Wow. Thanks, bro. How was any of this possible? My world was spinning, replaying Kaoru's words in my head, though they failed to register. I dared to look over at Father, whose only response was a smug, toothy smile.
Our relation may not be by blood, but nothing can change the fact that I raised you as my own. Chizuru, be a good girl. You want to help your father, don't you?
No, Father! I can't, even for you. Poisoning innocent lives and turning them into furies against their consent is inconceivable. What world do you expect anyone to live in afterwards? Ash, blood, and rubble. It's madness!
Hear that, Sanan? She thinks a world with only furies is madness.
Oh. Sanan offered no response, choosing instead to tilt his gaze downwards, causing my guilt to flare. Father pounced on this moment of vulnerability, sinking me deeper and deeper into self-loathing.
You're not the only one who feels that way. Of that I am certain. You're like the Shinsengumi men. Relying on fury powers is well and good when it's convenient for you, but you can't handle the power. In the end, like you, they're all just afraid. Afraid of how meek and worthless they are compared to furies.
Right. You are.
No,
Look at you, rushing to deny the truth. You've never been any good at lying, you know. Well, I'm not going to fool myself into thinking that you'll come to realize just how precious furies are anytime soon, either. There's still time. I'll let Sanan do the talking for me. Perhaps he can convince your stubborn mind otherwise. That way, I have faith that you'll come around and begin to see things from my perspective.
Father waxed on condescendingly, not bothering to wait as he beckoned Kaoru to follow his exit.
In the meantime, I'll permit you to roam limited portions of the castle. Sanan, I'll leave her to you.
Understood.
As Father and Kaoru sauntered out of the room, a somber mood fell heavily throughout the room. I shot Sanan a menacing glance, hoping that he'd stand no chance of missing how upset I felt. You go, girl. His betrayal shattered my confidence in him. He had played me for a fool, and I felt doubly foolish for having believed in him. Sanan murdered Heisuke in cold blood, knocked me unconscious, and abducted me to bring me here. For the time being, I hated him more than anything. And yet.
As you heard, I have been ordered to somehow make it easier for you to stomach our proposal. We might as well begin, shall we? Come join me in my quarters. I shall prepare some tea for us.
By my estimation, it had been somewhere close to 10 days since I was held captive in that cramped room. Getting out of it hadn't necessarily improved my foul mood, but being able to stretch my legs and take in a breath of fresh air was a welcome change. As Sanan led me down the hallway, I first observed how eerily spacious and devoid of life the castle was, likely attributed to all of the Furies on patrol. Whoa. Now that's a scientist's room. Look at all those vials and notes on the walls and stuff. Interesting. Eventually, Sanan stopped in front of his door, pausing for a second before sliding it open to reveal a bare room filled with an array of stacked documents. It bore no resemblance to his room from when he lived with the Shinsengumi, so I assumed it was assigned to him rather than chosen. He then poured me a cup of tea.
Now, I must admit, the appropriate method of initiating this conversation somewhat escapes me.
Well, then let me ask you a question first.
By all means.
Is this really what you want? Are you oblivious to how insane my father sounds? He's gone mad. I can't believe that he's planning on forcing everyone to drink the water of life.
How would you respond if I said that I do find merit in his plan? If I must suffer the burden of loneliness, of anguish, from becoming a Fury, then the rest of the world should be made to suffer alongside me. My existence bears no meaning. As the world turns, I find myself to be a passenger, not a participant.
That couldn't be further from the truth. I know you, Sanan. There's kindness inside of you. That's why none of this makes sense to me. You aren't cruel. You're just misunderstood. He's like, what?
Not a single person has ever said as much to me. It feels like ages since anyone has described me as kind.
A genial smile formed in Sanan's thin lips, but as he chewed on the word for a minute longer, his expression became suddenly bitter. I bit my lip nervously, sitting at the opposite end of Sanan's piercing stare until he shook his head.
As always, your intuition is on point. No, Kodo and I do not see eye to eye on every measure of his grand plan. On the contrary, I find it rather foolish. Simple deduction pokes holes into its logical feasibility.
Then why go through all of this? Why did you sneak out of the Shinsengumi to work under my father?
Do you truly want to know? I fear disappointing you with how straightforward my answer may seem.
I don't care. Please, I just need to know. I need to hear it from you, so I can know whether or not to trust you.
It was an act of preservation for my Furies. My greatest desire is to help restore their humanity.
A listless smile curled in the corner of Sanan's mouth, warm and fleeting like a summer sunset. Then he pulled the collar of his shirt to expose his bare chest. I was aghast, throwing my hands over my mouth. His skin had dried and cracked like stone, stretching over his pale, narrow left shoulder. Really? Okay, so the dust thing is not immediate. You start getting like this cracking. Interesting. Okay. Thanks, Sanan. More info. Ooh. That's terrible. What happened to you? To your arm? Dang, he undressed quickly. I'm like, wait, you had on a jacket and things?
You witnessed it yourself, hadn't you? Furies, on the edge of death, wither to ash. Such is the fate of those before me, and perhaps my turn is next. I've suspected for some time that this is an unsightly symptom of that very same phenomenon. In fact, I'm certain of it.
No!
Some of the Furies whom I'd asked to accompany my departure share these symptoms. To tell you the truth, I hadn't expected to last as long as I have. 'Twas 3 years ago that my life ended.
So, Sanan was dying. Is that why you're so obsessed with working with my father on his research?
Precisely. Remaining with the Shinsengumi would have been a death sentence. A period of waiting until expiry. Sacrifices were made, ones I'm not proud of. I had betrayed you, the Shinsengumi, and Toto. All of this in the interest of protecting the Furies who entrusted me to nurture and save their lives.
Heisuke wasn't so lucky though, was he?
Well, he had to abide by his own orders. The least I could do for him was to end him myself. His casualty was an unfortunate circumstance.
Sanan turned his head wistfully, hastily covering his chest back up as he glanced off to the side in contemplation. Man, put on a vest and the jacket again.
I've known for some time that this would come. I'd braced myself for it. In fact, if I were the only one who'd become a Fury, then I would have followed a similar path to Toto. Sadly for myself, too many men have been afflicted by the taste of the wretched serum. I cannot bear the thought of abandoning them by dying before I repay the accursed debt to which they are owed. Initially, I took some pride in being a Fury, but now I scoff at the thought.
Sanan gave a derisive laugh, and I couldn't help but feel sorrow at his lamentable position. Of course, I still couldn't forgive him for killing Heisuke, nor had I any intention of doing so. But what right did I have to criticize him for fighting to shape his own destiny? There was an altruistic end to his dastardly means. Under his wing were the fragile lives of the Furies he swore to protect from those who had them condemned to remain hidden in the shadows.
You needn't lend me your pity. I summon my fate unto myself. My only regret is that everything I had done up until now is, well, meaningless.
What do you mean by that?
After the two of us conducted a preliminary round of experiments, Kodo made something explicitly clear. Those who've submitted to the Furies hold stand no chance of becoming human once more. Or, so he says. Seeing the fruits of betrayal, of a murder I had never wanted to commit, amount to this. If gods exist, then they have been surely seen to it the retribution for my actions is paid in full.
A regretful frown covered Sanan's face, and I said, let me save. I mean, yeah, nothing is for certain. Yeah, you're still here. I'm not sure where either of these are going to lead. Like, saying nothing is for certain, like, don't give up on your hope of regaining your humanity. It doesn't seem like that is possible. Like, you can limit the effects of the furiness. You can get rid of the bloodlust and the pain with the sun, and it seems stave off the turning to dust for a little bit. And then it's saying you're still here, like, you still have time, like, you're still in control of your destiny until He turned to dust, basically. I don't know. I'm just gonna start with the top option and see what happens. I'm not really sure about either of these. Please don't let it get to you. Oh. A solemn glow twinkled faintly in Sanon's eye, and I reached out to touch his soft, rosy cheeks. I wondered if they felt as warm to him as they did to me. If somehow I could transfer the heat in my fingers to his face, I could get through to him, and so I moved to cup his cheeks with both of my hands. Well, I'm liking how this is going so far. You are still alive.
Weren't you listening? I've little time before my body reduces to ash.
But for the time being, you're still here. Am I wrong? If the only thing you've taken from any of this is that you don't feel like you'll ever become human, sure. The option of returning back to normal might not be available yet, but there may be a way of prolonging your life while you're still Fury. Alright. I mean, which is the actual case. Yeah, he's looking at it as a one solution thing and not considering, like, well, if I can't regain my humanity, maybe I can at least limit the effects of being a Fury. So I'm glad we picked that.
Well...
Silence hovered between us, save for the sound of steam hissing from my teacup. As Sanon let my words sink, he bit his lips and hastily wrapped his hand around my arm. I gasped, and he spoke under his breath.
I don't understand you. What compels you to extend your kindness to me? I deserve nothing, not after what I've done. Each time you do so, I am coaxed by a seemingly impossible hope. In spite of my efforts to stop it, it lingers. I carry a thin dream that one day we could be together. But, ever the pragmatist, I know it to be futile.
What is this, a Jane Austen novel all of a sudden? Dang, dude, your lines. No. Not as much as you might think. I think what you just said sounds beautiful. Listen, when all of this is over, why don't you and I go on a journey? Just the two of us. We could find a quaint town where no one knows our name, where there are no Furies anywhere, and we can make dinner every night, and...
Enough. The pain is enough without you here to tease me.
But what if, like you said, you could return to being a human... No, it shouldn't be conditional. We could do it even if you were still a Fury. Can't you see? We could build a home together, and while you read or write, I could serve you tea just the way you like it.
Are you deaf? I'm a Fury. I cannot indulge in a delusional woman's idle fantasies.
You know, when you disappeared from the headquarters, I was worried sick about you. I searched for you day and night, and not a single day went by where I hadn't thought about you. You have no idea how much I've missed you. A glimpse of your face, your soothing voice, and that's when I began to realize how drawn I am to you.
Stop this. I've already told you I'm a Fury.
That doesn't matter.
Silence. We are through with discussing this.
Oh, okay. The time for talk is over. Smooch. All right. What? As Sanon interjected, he grabbed my chin with his index finger and thumb and pulled me closer to him. With an inspective, focused gaze, he stared at me. What do you plan on doing to me? Hi. I didn't realize there wasn't that much of a height difference between you two. How interesting. Unless you guys are both on the floor, like kind of kneeling. I attempted to budge out of his grip, but he was forceful, tugging on my chin just as quickly. The longer he delayed his answer, the more anxious I became. until at last I felt the tingle of his whispered words upon my sweaty face. I'm enjoying this whole, like, confession thing way too much, though. Okay.
If you so desire to continue this conversation, then I must force your mouth shut. Is this acceptable to you?
I could neither accept nor retort, offering instead to grunt begrudgingly. I mean, that is literally what you did.
I am a fury. Whatever ideal fantasies you may delude yourself into thinking are nothing more than an illusion or a daydream. Wake up.
Well, maybe I like dreaming. This time, I promise not to let my faith in you waver. All that I ask is that you have faith in me too, Sanan, and that you'll let me go wherever you go. Just please, don't leave me behind again. A life without you is one I can't afford to experience.
Ah, this again. You are seriously such a...
Sanan inched his face forward. Suddenly my face went numb, feeling Sanan's tender lips press against mine.
You talk far too much, but I find you precocious all the same. Now, are you ready?
Ready for what?
Ready for me to shut that mouth of yours?
Yes, it finally happened! I got the kiss! Yes! It was the most aggressive confession kiss in the game so far. I'm gonna shut you up, schmooch. Sanan took hold of me, keeping his arm fixed on the small of my back as he drew me into his warm embrace. I felt the nibble of his soft lips against my own, followed by his tongue flicking against mine gently. Oh dang, we're getting into it. My cheeks were scorching red from blush, but even they could not compare to my heart's burning fire. Every hair on my body stood, engulfing me in a pleasant tingle as Sanan muttered in my ear.
If our love is meant to be, and you wish to remain at my side, then I shall protect you with my life. Do you think you're ready for that?
I nodded in response, letting myself sink against his bosom. Oh my god, this totally is a Jane Austen novel. Sinking against his bosom. Oh. After a moment of holding each other, he backed away. Sanan.
I still have a mission to complete, which, in the meantime, may require precarious actions of which you may disapprove. Do you understand?
Yes. What a time for bloodlust. Man, this whole thing, it went from, like, Dad telling him to convince her about the evil plan, to her being like, you know what, you idiot, I'm in love with you, to him aggressively kissing her because he's like, I don't believe you, but I want to, and now it's, I'm having bloodlust time. It's too much, man.
In spite of what I've become, you've...
In the middle of his sentence, Sanan clutched his chest. It was unmistakable. This was bloodlust. Thankfully, I still have my Kodachi, so I can still cut my arm. So. Oh, okay. Here, take me. I trust you. Have some of my blood. Out of reflex, I drew out my Kodachi and slit my wrist. I told you, I can't live without you. And if your survival depends on blood, then mine is yours to take. Please, there's no need to hold back. I am yours, so use me as you please. Please, Sanan, drink my blood. You don't have to tell him twice.
Thank you, Yukimura. I am indebted to your kindness. I cannot let myself die yet. So, for the cause, allow me to savor the taste of you.
As you wish. For the cause! That was ridiculous, but amazing. I loved it.